Welcome to Good Grief, the podcast where resilience meets reality. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Malone. In this podcast, we delve deep into the stories of individuals who've triumphed over tragedy, adversity, and trauma. In every episode, we bring you raw and honest narratives from guests who faced life's most challenging moments head on. Through candid conversations, they share their journeys of resilience, shedding light on the strategies, mindset shifts, and support systems that empowered them to rise above their darkest hours. Join us as we explore the profound depths of human resilience and discover how, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and yes, good grief. Okay, listeners, thank you so much for joining me for my episode today. My guest is Richard Tierney. He is a creator of a two-part program designed to heal trauma, memories, and empower individuals to reclaim their lives. He focuses on spiritual empowerment, self-healing, and freedom from the past. So, Richard, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Christine, thank you very much for having this space. I really have to thank podcasters for holding such space. I mean, it's like beyond my capabilities, I believe, to do this, but you're doing it and you've been doing it and you're reaching so many people. And for me to be able to come on and talk about what I do, I thank you very much. I really am very excited to be here. My name is Richard Tierney. I'm originally from Ireland. I'm living in Thailand. I'm married. I've got two young adult children, I call them. That they wouldn't appreciate me calling them young, so they're in the university. And I live here in Thailand. I'm living away from my home in Ireland, some 7,000 miles away, 20 years or more abroad. I have a background of, when I was a child, I suffered a trauma event and it destroyed me. I was 12 years of age. I believed I must have caused it. I must have given some signal. I must have attracted this person to me. All the kind of crazy things you can get as a child that really kind of self-sabotages any chance of having a normal life, you know? And so I was always looking for some way of escaping. It wasn't that I wanted to die. I just didn't want to live because I felt such shame and self-loathing for what happened. And of course, then I led to addiction and I became a compulsive gambler and a chronic alcoholic and all the rest of it and self-harming and all the stuff you do trying to fill the hole in your soul.
Right.
I really believe that we have this hole in our soul. And the problem is you can look at me and think I'm a perfectly normal person by my appearance. I can dress very well. I can look very well. But inside, if there's a hole in my soul eating away at me, you can't see it. It might lead me to suicide, take my own life or harming somebody else. Now, look at me, you can't see that. But because there's a hole in my soul, I believe we suffer with a spiritual malady, which is the 12-step program say, and not mental disorders.
Okay.
And that's basically where I'm coming from with all this. So I wanted to find a spiritual solution.
Okay. So you mentioned the 12-step program. So for anybody who's not familiar with that is, what is a 12-step program all about?
Okay. There's a couple of men in the early 1900s created a program called Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's a 12-step program whereby you took responsibility for your side of the street. You stop being a victim and a lot of stuff. You realize that our best efforts fail us. And most alcoholics, addicts will tell you that no matter what they try, how they try to drink, the types of drink they drink, whether they drink in the morning or the afternoon or the evening, or they mix their drinks or the kind of stuff, or they add in medication or drugs or whatever, no matter what they try, nothing helps them to maintain a good quality of life. They'll try everything and anything and nothing works. And so the first step is understanding that no matter what we try to do, we're going to fail. On our own, we're going to fail. We can't do this alone. That's the first line in AA is that you can't do this on your own. We're powerless and we're not capable of managing our own lives, whether that's relationships or intimacy or our feelings or our emotions. We're just incapable of doing it on our own. Then the second step is you know that this earth is full of resources. So there's podcast presenters, there's doctors and professors, there's resources on YouTube and Spotify, there's books and literature, there's libraries. There's so much resources out there that you can tap into. You could be going crazy and basically meet a stranger at an airport and say, you don't know me from Adam. I'm going crazy. Will you sit there and let me speak to you for half an hour? Let me just get it off my head. Don't try and fix to save me. Don't have to do anything. Just listen to me speak and vent. And then you can walk away and I'll walk away. And just doing that can give us relief. And then all the holistic practices and all the life coaching techniques and all the therapists that can teach you. There's so much help on this earth that we're not alone. The second step is we're not alone. There's always someone we can call on. And then the third step is to give God a second chance. You know, the idea is that man using God for their purposes fail man. And we can see men doing terrible things in the name of God and think that God is bad. But it's not God that's bad. It's the men who used the tools that use them, and then we look at history, but we can't judge history because it was a different time. We didn't live in that time.
Yeah.
We didn't live in the time of Crusades or the Christian kingdom or, that war. So we can't judge what happened in his name as being pertinent to our lives today. But the third step says, give God a second chance. So if your tribe are atheists and unbelievers, okay, or they're anything else, and they're opposed to the idea of religion, just go into your bedroom, lock the door, close the curtains, turn off the light, climb into the wardrobe, and just say to God, I can't take this crap anymore. Please take it from me for 8 hours sleep. Take it from me now, and have a pen and paper and write down everything that irritates or ruminates in your mind and read it out loud. I'm giving you my relationship with my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, my boss, my colleagues, my anger and resentments towards my government or towards American government or Ukrainian government or English government, whatever it is that irritates you and keeps you awake at night. I'm giving all this to you. Please take it from me for 8 hours sleep. And then imagine that God has sent a host of angels to take it off you. And in that moment, get into your bed, close your eyes and fall asleep. And it's a psychological fact that if we can give our thoughts to somebody else or some way, like writing on a bit of paper and getting the paper and flushing it down the toilet, we will get peace of mind by the psychological effect of giving it away. That's why therapy is so great. You go to a therapist and you share with a therapist and you feel better for it. So if you get the idea, and whether you believe in God or not, just say, okay, God, Richard says there's a God. I don't believe there's a God, but I'm going to give you all my crap for the next 8 hours. Here it is, full, all of it. It's all yours. Take it from me for 8 hours. And you do that, and suddenly you have peace of mind for 8 hours. And you kind of go, God, if I can get 8 hours peace of mind doing it this way, how about I can get an hour for an interview, an hour for a date, or 3 hours in the morning going to work, or 3 hours for my morning session, or 3 hours for my afternoon session. And you can break it into times of 15 minutes or a half an hour where you say, God, take my crap off me for the next 15 minutes while I go and have some lunch. Or while I sit with my boss for that interview or that chat, or he's going to give out to me, take it from me so I can be at peace and hear what he has to say. And then see the God taking them off you with the angels, go into your boss, and you sit there and he's going your grief and whatever, and you're calm and just going, yes, sir, okay, whatever you say, sir, take a note. And you walk out just kind of going, that went better than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fundamentally what 12 steps is, taking stock that we can't do it on our own and we need help.
Right. Being vulnerable, but, realizing that none of us is strong enough to really get over these things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point.
So again, whatever we're talking about, we talk about grief later on. You don't grieve on your own, and you don't hold on to the grief yourself because it's something we can't manage on our own. We can't live with grief. So we have to find some way of giving the grief away.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing.
The concept of trauma memory. So as I understand it, the thinking is that as we experience trauma, it is ingrained in memories that we have. And so somehow with the treatments, whatever you're talking about, or talking, whatever it is to extract those, or how does that work?
Well, I have to go way back to the womb. I saw, I think it was something on TikTok, and it was about two guys in the womb, and one says to the other fella, do you think there's life after the womb? And the other guy says, oh, no. Once the umbilical cord is cut, we're finished. There's nothing more after the womb, And your man says, but maybe there's something different. Maybe something we never expect is going to be on the other side, And this kind of stuff. And the reason why I touch into this, not because life after death, but because we're God's creatures. We're made in God's image, and we're given our feelings and emotions are our first line of defense. They're God-given instincts in the face of danger. So when danger happens, we feel anxious or nervous or stressed or whatever, and it kicks us into action of fight, flight, or freeze. So when we're in the womb and we're coming out of the womb, we don't die. We're coming into a new life. But in that moment, our instincts kick in, and we respond with fight, flight, or freeze. Now, if you come out of the womb and you're comatose, you've slipped into freeze, the midwife will hold you up by the ankle, slap you in the bum to get a reaction. When they get a reaction, put you into a blanket and put you into a cot. That first message to you is your first coping skill of freeze is not effective. And before you start your life, you can never trust your first response to danger. So if you come out of the womb and you're kicking and shouting, you may be fight or flight. We don't know. But in that instance, the midwife will wrap you in a blanket to subdue you, put you in the cradle or give you to the mother. In that moment, you've been given a message that your response of fight is ineffective or your response of flight is ineffective. Now, this means that going into your life, your first response to danger has been taken from you. So you're left with two responses that aren't your first choice. So if freeze has been taken from you, you're left with fight or flight. If your fight's been taken from you, you're left with freeze or flight. So we get a situation where before even any trauma happens, when we're faced with danger, we can't go to our natural response, God-given response, to run away or to hide or to flight. So we kind of get stuck in this thing about not knowing what to do. We become victims because we're not capable of doing what we're allowed to do, what we're meant to do, what was given to us by God. So the child comes out of the womb who is just happy and content and free. The midwife takes the child, gives it to the mother. The mother holds the baby. That connection means the heart touching against the heart. That child goes on to be what we call the strong, silent type. You know, the type of child who goes up into a mature adult who's successful and all this kind of bountiful, wonderful person. And that's the person who's never had that problem. But the rest of us who've lost one of our main coping skills, in some way we're less human because of it. And then growing up in our childhood, children are told to be seen and not heard, and not to throw tantrums and not to act out, and that they can't feel their feelings and this kind of stuff, that to do what they're told. And we're getting more and more messages that we're not allowed to respond with our instincts. And then we're told our instincts are in some way mental disorders. So we can't feel we can't be anxious or stressed or depressed. We can't be. So this, before that any major trauma happens, we have this conditioning from the womb right through our childhood coming into adult life. And then when we suffer a trauma, we just don't know how to cope with it. So we completely collapse. We just absolutely fall apart, and we're stretching for something outside of ourselves, because the message is everything within us is in some way defective.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know part of your program has to do with holistic practices. So do you want to discuss that, kind of what those look like?
Okay. So, but then my thought was, and this is what happened to me. I'm in recovery. I'm a sober AA member, some 37 years.
Okay.
And it was very difficult at the beginning for me to trust another man because of what happened to me in my childhood. And I think about 5 years of me being what we call a dry drunk. I was attending loads of meetings, doing loads of service, but my family walking on eggshells. I was this lunatic at home. I mean, in AA, they thought I was this really saintly guy, but my family were suffering the horrors of living with a dry drunk, someone who couldn't drink and didn't want to change and wanted everyone else to fit his lifestyle. And then I finally got a sponsor, and each time I found a sponsor, I found someone who really helped me become a mature adult. Now, again, it took a long time. It took 30 odd years for me to become a really mature adult, but because I was like, they talk about the inner child work. Well, I was a child adult. I was a 27-year-old man coming into adulthood with the mind and heart and soul of a 12-year-old child who'd been traumatized. So the 12-year-old child trapped in a 27-year-old man's body. And I couldn't relate to other adults. I felt very comfortable around children, very, very comfortable playing games, but I wasn't comfortable being with adults. So that was where I was. I was a 12-year-old child trapped in an adult body. So meeting these men who sponsored me and having the ability, I don't know where I came from, I can only came from God, to actually take a chance and trust these people. And they gave me, so I believed in never trusting one man. That was against my nature because of what happened. I couldn't trust one man, but I believed if I could trust 12 different sponsors, 30 different sponsors, I would learn 12 different perspectives of how it is to be a man. 13 different perspectives. So right now I'm up to 14 sponsors I've had in my 37 years. So I've had 14 different expressions of what it is to be an adult male. And it's helped me profoundly to change me. So I have 14 different perspectives rather than my perspective, because I know from the first step, my best efforts fail me. So I have these 14 different perspectives. But one of my perspectives, I like to call him a mentor, said to me one time, isn't it time you stop flogging that dead horse, being a victim? I was furious. I was thinking, how can you say that to me? I'm a victim. I suffered this when I was a child. You can't tell me to let go of that. This is so wrong. You can't do that. I was furious. I wanted to fire. This is where the colorful language came in my last podcast. I wanted to tell this guy to go jump. I used a lot of colorful language, I'm afraid, the last time. But really, I felt very offended by this fella telling me to let go of the past. It was like, in what world do you think it's okay to tell me, who's been a victim, not to be a victim anymore? Like, just to let it go. Like, I mean, how insane is that? You don't know what happened to me or what I went through. But then I started thinking, this man, but one of the three men who really impressed upon me a new way of thinking, a new way of living. And I didn't want to give up this relationship. I didn't want to give up what we'd achieved so much together. So I decided I'd look at why he would dream of telling me the past is none of my business. So I tried to find a way. I went back to the Bible. I went through all these spiritual readings and books and teachers about their take on grief and their take on letting go of the past and let go, let God. We have in AA. And I came to understand that. So I imagine it happened to me today. Okay, today I'm a 64-year-old man. I'm living in northern Thailand. I'm married. I've got two adult teenage children. I call them. God forgive me. I had 5 siblings. One died of leukemia. My parents are both dead. All bar one of my aunts and uncles are dead. My family home has been sold. I live 7,000 miles away from where I was born and raised. And then on the other side of the coin, there's a 12-year-old child called Richie. He lives in the family home with his parents and his 5 siblings. They're all still alive. Basically, all his aunts and uncles and grandparents are still alive. He lives in Ireland, which is 7,000 miles away from where I live. He's a child. He's attending a local school. And he's not married. He doesn't have kids. And if I can take a photograph of myself and put it on my page, and take a photograph of that 12-year-old child and put it on his page, and look at both of them, I can see they're 2 different people. My life is only in these 24 hours today. And what happened to a 12-year-old child 52 years ago didn't happen to this 64-year-old man. I carry the memory of what happened to that child, and I carry sympathy pains for him as a show of support and solidarity for what he went through. But I can't keep saying it happened to me because I'm 64 years of age. And it didn't happen to this 64-year-old man. This 64-year-old man at 6:27 a.m. in the morning here in Thailand is on the Dr. Christine Malone podcast. And then I'm going to take my dogs for a walk and have breakfast, and I'm going to do some of my own work with my own clients. And nothing in my life today has anything to do with what happened 52 years ago. So it's none of my business. And this was the awakening moment for me. Was I had to find a way of giving the details and the baggage of the past back to my younger self. I realized that I always carried the memory of what happened to him. That's part of human nature. Every memory we have in our lives, we carry, and we don't let go. We have them till the day we die. Every memory we have. But the details of them all and the baggage aren't ours to carry. I have to give it back to my younger self. So I had to find a solution, and it's spiritual and holistic, to give that back to my younger self. And that's where the holistic comes in, and that's where the spirituality of the Bible comes in. I combine both these together to create a healing event that takes approximately 2 hours for me to give all of the details and baggage of my past back to my younger self, that 12-year-old child, and for him then to be able to step out of my plane of existence and step into the mansion prepared for him in our Father's mansion. And in that moment of achieving this, I felt a release in my body, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It was like the details were gone. Now, if someone asked me about what happened to that 12-year-old child, I can talk about it as a memory. What happened to him was terrible, and I feel greatly for him, but it's not my business. It didn't happen to me. And that was the big turning point for me.
Oh, I've actually never heard that perspective before. So it's like you're shocking me. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, hand it back. I mean, having been through a lot of trauma in my own life, and much of which comes from my childhood as well, I'm going to ponder on that one when we're done today, because I've just anyway. That's amazing. So you have the two-part program. So what the first part consists of that giving the trauma back, or how does that work?
Yes. So the first part of it is a 2-hour practice, and this is going to sound. If you think the last bit was a bit challenging, this is going to be a bit more challenging. I show my clients how they can perform a minimum of 7 miracles upon themselves. The truth is, you and I can't fix or save anybody else. I can't fix or save you for your past, and you can't fix or save my past. But I can show you how I healed my past. And then if you repeat what I did, like when I learned from a sponsor, you'll be able to do what I did, which was let go of the past. And that's the idea. So I take the clients through a 2-hour, very intimate, personal practice where I suggest these 7 practices to lay a solid foundation, where we basically rid ourselves of the anxiety and the stress from our bodies. We release it in a very safe and non-intrusive manner through 7 exercises. And then at the end of that, then we do the holistic practice. And I use a combination of acupressure, EFT, Reiki, and some NLP practices that I combined into this healing event. And then a lot of the spirituality of giving it to God. He's the only one who can deal with us. We meant to live in the present, the I am. He's the past, the present, the future. So we give the past to him, but we also give it to our younger self, and the younger self takes it and steps into the light. And we see this in our visualization of them taking it and walking away with it. And in that moment, the release is profound. So I would imagine if I was working with you, Christine, I would be seeing a younger version of you. If you could close your eyes for a moment, you might see a younger version of you in the clouds looking down at you saying, Christine, will you ever give me back my crap? I've been waiting for the last 30 years for you to let me go. I need to step into the light. Please give me back all my rubbish. I can fight my own battles. I need you to focus on your family in this present moment and let me take my baggage and I'll go with it. I've got 10,000 angels beside me here to help me. Please let me go. And then the idea is that we actually make a conscious decision, like that thing where we're in the wardrobe giving all our day to God. We make a conscious decision of giving our younger self all of their baggage back. Okay, I can't fight your battles anymore. I've been trying to fight your battles for the last 40 years. Nothing's happening, but it's ruining my life and it's ruining my life with my relationship. And I'm getting divorced and my children don't want to see me and it's ruining my life. So I'm going to give it all to you now. And you go through the list of, I'm giving you what happened to you when you were 12. I'm giving to you what happened to you when you were 10 or 5, whatever it is. And you name and shame them. The troublemakers, the abusers in that list. I'm going to give all this to you now. It's yours. And you see them saying, oh, thanks very much. I wanted that bit. I wanted that bit. And you see this actually happening where they take it off you saying, thank you for giving it to me. And then when it's all gone, they kind of go, thank you. They step into the light. And that moment, the release that I felt for myself and for the 100 clients that I worked with was profound. You could see a whole change in our persona, in our face, in our bodies, like this weight had been lifted from our shoulders. Like this weight been lifted off our chest, like the elephant that sits on our chest that causes all the anxiety and panic because we can't breathe, left the room. And suddenly like we're like, like, it's like a release from our bodies that is spiritual, but it looks like it's physical. It's like this complete release. And once that happens and you've given the past away, you realize whatever you're suffering in the present, whether it's a mental disorder or it's addiction, that's the effect of the cause, which is the past. And when you give the past away, with the cause gone, you now can undo and unlearn the dysfunctional behaviors of your learned behavior, which is maybe a mental disorder or it's an addiction. So you do this 12-step program to unlearn that. Now we're no longer a victim. Like in most 12-step programs, we're trying to abstain from drinking again or drugging. So it's always about not going back to the first drink or the first drug. That's the bottom line for recovery. If you don't take that first drink, you can't get drunk. If you don't take that first drug, you can't get high. So the idea is abstaining is the front line of defense. But in this program, because you're given the past's details and baggage back to your younger self, you can never tap into them again. They're gone. They've left your psyche. Even if you try to, people know you're faking it. You're kind of going, yeah, no, what happened. The details are gone. They actually leave your psyche. You can't remember what it felt like. You can't remember if the sun was shining or if it was cold in your skin or if you sweated or perspired or the effects in your body while the event was happening. It leaves your psyche completely. So you can't pretend it happened to you or you can't portray it happened to you because you're giving it back to your younger self. So in that instant, you realize I've got to now to unlearn all these dysfunctional behaviors of maybe been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. That you learn with post-traumatic stress to push people away and not to let people get close and to only stay with your brotherhood and your fellowship and your community and trust your sponsor, your therapist only and not let people, and this kind of stuff. So you have to unlearn all that. So the 12-step program is created to unlearn all those behaviors.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. It reminds me of I'm probably going to remember the name wrong, but it's something called like family trauma theory that I just heard about not too terribly long ago, which kind of is the same idea where you've got these events that happen that then become in that thinking and that theory like a fracture, almost like a split personality, if you will. That to get over those things, you have to find that broken piece and make friends with it or something. So, I mean, your idea of giving it back to them and then them going with it is kind of reminds me of that family trauma, I think it's called.
So I'd like to bring it in grief for one moment. I know it's a big topic for you. So for myself with grief, it's a case of in the same way. I'm a 64-year-old man today. At the age of I think it was 39, my father died, and it was quite difficult for me. For anybody, but again, I was a child in an adult's body, not wanting to be an adult. And my mother died of cancer years before that. So having my dad around meant I was protected. He'd always watch out, Richie, and get away with all the excuses and and give me a free pass. It's Richie. He's a great guy, and I'd be doing terrible stuff. But and my family would be screaming, my siblings would be screaming for me to be accountable or something. But even my dad would go, no, 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 leave him alone. He's a great, kind of stuff. So when he passed, I suddenly lost my codependent, my enabler, and it was really hard for me. But then as I do this work, I realize I'm a 64-year-old man today. I don't have a father. But a 39-year-old Richie had a father, and he lost his father. I didn't lose my father. My father's dead now, some 20-odd years, 25 years. So I didn't lose my father. The Richard Tierney of the day didn't lose his father. At 39-year-old Richie, who wasn't the same person, who was a codependent, victim, martyr, angry at the world, he lost his father. But this mature adult, I like to think I am today, husband and father, didn't lose my father. So I can't go on about, I lost my father when I was 39, because I was never 39. The 64-year-old man was never 39. I'm only 64 years of age today. I'm not even the same 64-year-old man I was yesterday, because yesterday I wasn't sitting chatting with Christine Malone. And tomorrow I'll be a different 64-year-old man, because I will have had the experience of working and sitting with you in your podcast yesterday. That'll have changed me. This conversation would have changed me. I didn't have this conversation yesterday. I'm having it today. I'll be changed by tomorrow because of this conversation.
So the idea of giving that grief back, if you will, to your 9-year-old self, then that person goes to the light, or however you use that. And I mean, you don't lose the person. You don't lose the memories that you have. It's just that trauma, that grief is what you're giving.
But again, there's one of these TikToks where your man says that, I think someone says, God created us to live in abundance today. And he can't understand why we've been given a book of instructions and free will on how to use the book of instructions, and we choose scarcity and poverty and grief and shame and pain and hurt. And he's looking at us thinking, what the hell are they doing? I've given them a book of instructions and free will to live abundantly today, and they're focusing on what happened in the past, and they're full of shame and anger and rage and resentments and scarcity and poverty, and they could be living richly like millionaires, and they're choosing to live in the breadline and believe that they're, and this kind of stuff. And it really brought it home to me. God's name is I am. We're meant to live in the present moment only, I am. And we're meant to attach to his name anything that is virtuous, like happy, joyous, empowered, strong, confident, love, empathy, kindness, abundant, opulence, abundance, unlimited opulence, abundance, perfect health. This is what we're meant to do, but we're being conditioned to say, I am a victim. The world is out to get me. No one likes me. No one wants me to succeed. Everyone wants to knock me down. The whole world is at war. No one cares about me. I can't find a partner. I can't find a job. I can't. All this stuff. We're conditioned to focus on the negative, and it's getting worse every year. It seems to be more and more things are coming in to make us doubt our humanity, doubt our ability to simply be I am. So we're conditioned to focus on the past or the future, but not the present. And the idea is to accept that today I am a normal, boring human being, no better or no worse than anybody else. I'm a parent and a husband. I'm a guest on a podcast that I'm really thoroughly enjoying. I'm a recovery coach therapist. I've written a 12-step program, which is profound for me. When it came to 12-step, I knew 12 steps was the answer, that we could empower clients to heal themselves. There's a huge drive to make people dependent on the state or dependent on the mental health industry or dependent on others to have any kind of sense of identity. But the 12-step program empowers the person to heal themselves. And I thought if I could find some way of creating a 12-step program, or find a 12-step program that would empower the individual to be their own therapist, that would be wonderful. And I searched high and low, and I found a lot of programs had taken the 12 steps of AA and just replaced the word alcohol with mental health or with depression or PTSD. But it didn't work because we were working off abstaining. And if we're talking about abstaining, the problem always remains, because we can always go back. And we had to find a way of stopping us from going back. So we had to find a different solution. And then I found some Christian organizations had embraced the 12 steps, but they embraced like 7 steps or 9 steps or 11 steps, or they hadn't completed the whole 12 steps. And so I took to writing a 12-step program that would be focused on past trauma memories, rather than the mental disorder. The mental disorder is a person's opinion of you. So if you go to a therapist and you're having trouble in your life, when you go to see your therapist, you're not going to present happy, joyous, and free because you're going for help. You're going to share the worst case scenario of how bad it can get. And if your therapist diagnoses you on that presentation, that might be a misdiagnosis. Uh, Most people suffer with a state of hopelessness. They have this inferiority complex. They feel this sense of complete hopelessness, especially for veterans coming back from a conflict. They've been out to a war. They've been trained to kill. They've been trained to kill and to all that stuff that goes with war. And then they come back to normal life where all this stuff that they've been trained in the last 3 or 4 years is now not helpful, but that's all they've been trained to do. So they kind of feel there's no hope for them to fit back into regular life. And because of that, they can have bouts of depression, bouts of stress, bouts of anxiety, but they're not permanent states. They're still capable of living a life, but they have terrible bouts of depression, stress, and anxiety. And if they present to a therapist this state of post-traumatic stress, they could be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's not a permanent state of being. It's a bout of what they experience. Their actual state of being is they're suffering with hopelessness. Mm-hmm. And if we can focus on hopelessness rather than the effects of the hopelessness, so cause and effect, science tells us it's about cause and effect. It's not about how it affects you. It's the cause. It's like if you break your leg. If someone just keeps medicating you for the pain, but doesn't put your leg in a cast, your leg's never going to get better. But they put your leg in a cast and they can medicate you as well. In 6 months or so, your leg's fine. You can take the cast off and you can walk again. And you can wean yourself off the medication. But if they don't put your leg in a cast and they don't give you crutches, they don't give you a wheelchair and they don't give you a Zimmer frame and they keep medicating your leg, you're going to be broken leg for life. And there's nothing's going to help you. All the medication isn't going to help the broken leg. And it's about cause and effect. So if you suffer from hopelessness or suffer from an inferiority complex over the fact that you don't fit in anymore, you don't fit in with your family or with your community, and that's causing you to have bouts of stress or bouts of depression or bouts of anxiety, we can't be treating the bouts of the feelings as a disorder. It's not the problem. It's their solution. When they feel the hopelessness, the only way of coping is to be depressed, be anxious, or be stressed. It's like the alcoholic. Their coping skill when they drank was to drink. That was what they kept saying. Again, it's not right, it's not proper, but that's all they knew was to be drink or to drug or to whatever. Not approving of it, not saying it's okay to be an alcoholic. But at the time, that's the only coping skill they had. And for the veteran who comes home from the war, bouts of stress, bouts of anxiety, bouts of depression, bouts of schizophrenia, that's their way of staying sane in this world that they don't fit into anymore. But we have to teach them about hope and how to heal through hope and through improving their sense of inferiority. And that's a soul sickness, a soul malady. It's a broken spirit. So it's not a mental disorder. It's a spiritual malady we have to work on. That's why I felt the 12-step program was the best avenue to teach people to heal the hole in their soul.
So I know with Alcoholics Anonymous, with the 12-step program, there's not like a timeline where one goes through these steps. It's kind of personal. So it's like if somebody, you can't walk in the door and say, I'm going to get through all of them in this first week because I'm kind of in a hurry. I got to go on vacation kind of thing. It doesn't really work that way. So is that kind of how your process works as well? It's like kind of like the grieving process in and of itself. We all do this in our own timeline and so on. And how does that work?
But in all honesty, if they didn't do the 12 steps in one day in the beginning, AA would never have formed. The AA, the old timers say, do the 12 steps as quickly as possible. If you can get them done in one day, get them done in one day. I've been taken to the 12 steps in 40 minutes, and I've taken sponsees to the 12 steps in 40 minutes. We can draw this. So as once AA got founded and they had like 1,000 members or 10,000 members, then they could take their time because they were founded and they had a solution. They had meetings and they had groups meeting together. So you could take a client or a member through the process in a slower way and more in depth. But to get it over the line, you did the 12 steps today. So I can take you to the 12 steps of Trauma Recovery Anonymous in 40 minutes today, Christine. At the end of 40 minutes, you'll know you've done the 12 steps. Now, again, the suggestion then is then you do the 12 steps again with somebody else over maybe 12 days, and then maybe somebody else over 12 weeks, and then maybe over 12 months, and then you do them for the rest of your life. But in the beginning, to get you over the threshold to be completely free, I would take the clients through the 2-hour healing event, and then the 12-step program in less than 1 hour. And then when that's over, the past is no longer their business. They're free of it. And they know all the reasons why, because they completed the 12 steps. Now, the trick is, then what I do is I take the 12 steps over. I take my clients to the 12 steps, 1 a week for 12 weeks. And then I try and get clients to join and make their own groups. And they would, like a regular 12-step program, they would, each week they'd focus on 1 step as a group and do the 1 step. But the idea is you do the 12 steps in 1 go. You do the healing event in 1 go. We've got very much indoctrined into going to therapy for years or for months or years or whatever it is, and stay with a therapist, build a good rapport and build a good connection with the therapist, and do it slowly and do it whatever. This is do the 12 steps today. Do the healing event today, and tomorrow morning you're free. I mean, it's a case of, it really is that simple for a client to treat themselves with this program and be free of it tomorrow. Or decide you're going to do the way you've been doing it for the last 10, 20. I've worked with some clients who've been in therapy for 10, 20, 30 years. It's frightening. If a client is treatment resistant, if a client has been in therapy for more than 1 year, or a client has been with more than 1 therapist, they aren't treatment resistant because they don't like the treatment. They're treatment resistant because they don't have the mental disorder. They've been misdiagnosed and they're opposed to being treated for something they don't have. That has to be the answer. If you have a client who's coming to you and been coming to you for years and nothing's improving, then possibly they're being treated for the wrong condition. It's like if you had a trapped nerve in your back and your doctor treats you for a muscle relaxant. The medication is going to relieve you the pain of the trapped nerve, but you're going to have the trapped nerve forever, and they're going to keep treating you for the muscle relaxant. They're going to have the same kind of effect on you. They're going to have the same kind of thing, but if they're not treating the muscle, the trapped nerve, there's no hope of you getting healed, even though the medication you're getting for the muscle relaxant also works for the trapped nerve. They're not focusing on all the massaging of the muscles probably making your trapped nerve worse.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to really consider. If we have clients who are treatment resistant, if we have clients who've been in therapy for more than 1 year or been with more than 1 therapist, possibly they have been misdiagnosed. That's what we have to look at today, because right now in the world, we have more than 1 billion people diagnosed with mental disorders. And that number is just crazy. In 80 years, the mental health industry has managed to diagnose 1 billion people, 1/8 of the world's population, as having mental disorders. I was reading recently that in all industries, there's a margin of between 3% and 8% for margin of error, and the average would be 5%. That would mean that between 30 million and 80 million clients diagnosed with mental disorders are misdiagnoses. And the average of 5% would mean that 50 million people in the world today have been misdiagnosed with a mental disorder. Now, if you look at if you have a practice and you're a therapist, you're listening to this podcast today and you're a therapist and you have a practice, look at the number of clients on your list who are treatment resistant, who have been in therapy for more than 1 year, who have been with more than 1 therapist. And I'm not saying this is your fault. You may not be the primary carer. It might be that somebody else in the past diagnosed them with PTSD or with depression or with anxiety, and they got it wrong. And you're now treating somebody for a condition that wasn't your fault, that wasn't your diagnosis, but you're treating them as a continuation of that preliminary diagnosis that may have been wrong. So if you have clients on your books and you have 100 clients and you've got 50 clients who might be treatment resistant, well, then there's a very good chance that 50 of your clients have been misdiagnosed. Not your fault, but you can be the solution. And then if it is a spiritual solution, well then, since we can't measure a person's soul or a soul sickness or a broken spirit, maybe the margin for error isn't 3% to 8%. Maybe the margin for error is 30% to 80%. Maybe the average is 50%. And then suddenly we're opening a whole can of worms where it could be 300 million people to 800 million people have been misdiagnosed. And suddenly the cat's out of the bag. Suddenly like we have the lid off the drum and the worms all spitting out, and we're trying to put the lid back on, and it's like, what have we done here? What have we opened here? Or what have we done to ourselves? We think we're doing this great thing of carrying a message and healing people, and in fact, maybe someone made an error. Maybe someone down the road, and maybe it's not 800 million, maybe it's only 1 person, but maybe we owe it to that 1 person to re-diagnose them, to maybe give them a chance of thinking that, no, you're not mentally ill. You didn't have a mental disorder. You have a soul sickness. You have no hope. And we're going to teach you how to have hope.
So once a person has gone through the two-part program, is it where they're going to continue? You mentioned starting your own groups and so on. Is that it's not like you just finished and I'm done. Now I'm going on with my life. Is it more like so how do you maintain, I guess is what I want to say.
You just keep repeating the 12 steps. And it's not even the whole 12 steps. I mean, you repeat the first three. Of my own, I can't do this. No matter how much good time I get upon myself, no matter how far away from my past trauma, I can't go back to self-will. Because self-will has always failed me. Self-will has always failed me. I've used alcohol, I've used drugs, I've used self-harm, used codependency, I've used manipulation, narcissism, all these things I have used. So I know if I go back to my old thinking, I'll go back to my old behaviors. I'll take up a drink again, I'll take up drugs again. So we have to maintain the first step, maintain the second step. I'm not alone. Always talk to somebody. You can always talk to somebody. You can talk to your dog. My wife has a Chihuahua who doesn't like walking, but I bring him for a short walk, maybe 100 yards or something every day. But if I have stuff going on in my head, I'll give it to the dog. I'll be walking saying blah, 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 for 100 yards. And the dog doesn't know what I'm saying, nothing on him. But I feel vetted. I got to vent and someone listened. And maybe my wife won't listen to me, but the dog will listen. He's got no choice. It's a captive audience. But I get to vent at the dog and I feel better for it. And then I just make a habit of having God in my life. I give God my crap morning, noon, and evening. And when I'm driving the car, and when I'm walking the dog, or whatever I'm doing, if people aren't looking, I don't draw attention to myself. I don't stand in street corners preaching to the world and saying, find God. And the Bible says, do it in private. So I do it in private. It's my private practice. 10 times a day, I will talk to God. I will say to him, God, I'm nervous, I'm apprehensive, or thank you for the confidence, or thank you for this morning with Christine. It was the most beautiful experience I've ever had in a long while, and thank you very much, or for our audience. There's things I will say to God to thank him for my blessings, thank him for this opportunity. And then if I have fears, I'll give them to him. I just say, okay, I can't deal with this fears today because I've got to now go spend time with my children. Please take it from me and give me peace of mind. That's it. That's my prayer. And accept that he's heard it, and suddenly I have peace of mind. I can't explain it to you. Until you do it, you won't you'd be shocked that it works so easily. And I don't do man-made religions. I'm no longer a member of any denomination. And now, I love churches. We were speaking before about you going on holidays to Europe and you love going to churches. I love churches. But I don't go to church on a Sunday. I go to church on a Monday to Saturday. I sit in a church and I just soak up that energy that's in a church and see the beautiful paintings and the murals and whatever. There's a peace in a church that I get from going there and sitting there. I won't go to mass. I just don't buy into all the man-made part of it. The big problem with God always has been man has messed it up, with the Crusades or whatever you go into. Someone has said, I'm doing this for God. And it's like, no, you're not. Like literally, no, you're not. You're doing it for yourself and you're blaming God. That's kind of what tends to happen. So I don't get involved in man-made religions. I like to. There's a. I'm a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic in Ireland, and I became disillusioned with the Catholic faith. So much of it just irks me, and not so much the faith, but how it's ruled and how it's portrayed by man really annoys and irritates me. So I tried a Baptist, and that was too Bible thumping. You're all going to die if you're not a Baptist. It was just too intense. And then I tried Jehovah, and I tried Protestant, and I tried Anglican and Presbyterian. And out of the Protestant church, I came across this minister who gave me 1.5 years of his life. Every Tuesday morning we go for breakfast, and he'd teach me about Jesus, Christ, and God. And he just talked about these three with me, and he'd give me literature to read and whatever. And he didn't try to convert me. He didn't try to get me to join his church or his denomination. He just would meet me for breakfast and give me a talk about what he believed, and he shared that with me. And it was like a mentoring, like a sponsor thing. He became my spiritual sponsor, and for 1.5 years, over breakfast, eating bacon, egg, and sausages in Thailand, and a cup of coffee and my toast, he would explain to me and talk to me about this, and it was just the most amazing experience for me. And that was my religion. So that became my religion. And when I felt I couldn't get any more from him, or he had done enough, I said, thank you very much, and we stopped meeting. And it wasn't a case that I was going to walk away. I found my understanding of God, Jesus, and the Christ that worked for me, for my recovery. And that was it. So I speak to him occasionally, but we don't meet for breakfast anymore. And I've nothing against him, and I've nothing against his religion or his denomination. He gave me enough for me to find God. And that's something I can never thank him enough for. But again, I think being in 12 step, we don't do organizations very well. The only organization that we do well is the 12 step AA program or the NA or GA, whatever one they're in. We find a very sense of calm and companionship in the fellowship of our 12 step group that we can't seem to find in the workplace or in a church or in any other kind of organization where there are bosses. In AA, there's no bosses. In AA, everyone's equal. But if you go into a boss situation or into a job or into a church, there's someone who's a leader and you're less than. And that doesn't seem to work for people like me. I believe that's what happens for me. I don't sit well with people where there's someone telling me what to do, telling me how to believe or how to think. That doesn't work for me, you know? So when I came to sponsors, I couldn't stick with one sponsor being like my father figure telling me what to do or whatever. So I went to go for a different one each time to teach me what they knew. And that was the idea behind it.
That's fantastic. I'm fascinated by it. So you have a practice where do you take on new clients now, or how does that? How do people find you?
I give out my email, which is information@traumarecoveryanonymous.com. I spoke to you earlier on about our IT gurus in our families. My 17-year-old son is my IT. He's fantastic. It just comes natural. He's a gamer, and he's just everything about IT is natural. Now he was homeschooled, and all homeschooling is IT. So he's just this brainwave around whatever. And he's promised to design me a website, but he's in the middle of this gaming season and whatever, and it's like it hasn't happened yet. And I don't want to push because he's doing it for free, so I don't want to push the boat out and kind of put an ultimatum. So I haven't got a website yet. And God forgive me, I don't know when I'm going to have a website yet, but I do have an email. And I have my books are available on Amazon and most other good book platforms. I don't mean to say good, but most other platforms. The healing event is called How to Heal Any Past Trauma Memory. And it's the 2-hour event that's available on Amazon. And then the 12-step program of Trauma Recovery Anonymous is available on Amazon and on other book platforms in both print and digital.
Well, we'll put those in the podcast notes so people can find you, both your email and your book, so that people can find you without having to write it down and remember it. I know my memory doesn't work like that. I like one-stop shop, but just push a button and I'm there. So that's kind of how we design our podcast notes. Hey, Richard, is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish today?
Well, I didn't talk to you enough about grief, and I hope what I touched on helped with your podcast. I tell my clients there's 3 things I ask them to do. One is to do that exercise where you have your page and you put you on one side and your younger self on the other side,
Right.
and compare and see the differences of the two of you to know that you're not your younger self. Everything about your life today is vastly different to that of your younger self. So it's a case of, Christine, if I may use you today, you're married, you got children today. A younger version of you lost a partner. Again, if you did that on a piece of paper, you'd see that was the life of that person. This is the life of this person today. They're 2 completely different lives. They're 2 different husbands. All the kind of stuff you can put in to say, that wasn't me. I have the memory of what happened to that version of me, but that wasn't me. I'm here today. So if you do that exercise, it'll help you to separate from the past. To understand that we only have these 24 hours. And if you can do that thing of climbing in the closet and giving your night's sleep to God, then you only have to deal with 16 hours. If you give the 8 hours at nighttime, you only have to deal with 8 hours of work and 8 hours of play. For your whole lifetime is just these 16 hours. So you wake up in the morning, you start your 16-hour day, and then you can ask God for 15 minutes here or 30 minutes here or an hour here or 3 hours here. And then at the end of the day, you say, okay, God, this was my day. I'm giving it all to you now. And you list out everything that happened in your day. Here's the list. I'm giving it all to you now. I'm going to bed. And then you go to bed and you get 8 hours of peaceful sleep. And you wake up the next morning and you're starting a new life of 16 hours. And you're no longer the person you were yesterday. So I can't go back and relive this podcast with Christine, even though I'm loving it. And I'd love to. I'm going to watch it a few times. I can't come back and relive it. But I have the memory of it in the future. So I know that my younger self thoroughly enjoyed being with Christine today. I'm telling you, I'm buzzing from being with Christina today. But I know the person I am tomorrow can't be the person I am today. And this is how we see that the past shouldn't define us. The second one is to know you're not alone. You always have someone or something to talk to. You can, if alcoholics with alcohol, drug addicts with drugs, whatever you can find that works for you, if it is still effective, you use it. Go for a jog, go for a run, eat a bar of chocolate, have a glass of water, have a drink of lemon, have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Eat some food, go to bed and have a good night's sleep, have a nap in the afternoon. Anything that will get you out of your head for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, that may be enough for you to turn the corner, to get over the threshold. You're going crazy in this moment in time, and then you kind of go, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go in and have a hot shower, wash my body, then have a cold shower, then say, God, take my crap off me, climb into bed, close my eyes, and suddenly you wake up a half an hour later kind of going, what happened? I zonked out for half an hour. That wasn't me. What happened? And then think, okay, maybe God listened to me and he gave me a half an hour. So give God a second chance. You've nothing to lose. There's no catches to it. Don't tell your family and friends you're giving God a second chance. Do it in secret. Honestly, don't tell them that if people have anything against God, they will find fault. They will put you down. They'll whatever. Just do it in private, in secret, in your bedroom. Lock the door, close the curtains, hide under the bed and say, God, I need 10 minutes of peace of mind right now so I can just focus on, I've got an exam in 10 minutes. I've got a phone call to take in 10 minutes. Please give me peace of mind. So when I take this call, I'll be relaxed. And then believe that he's taken it off you. And suddenly you'll find you have 10 minutes.
It has been absolutely fascinating to chat with you today. So I really appreciate you coming on my show and being my guest and sharing all that you've shared. And as I mentioned, we're going to put all the links in the podcast notes so people can find you should they choose to do so, and definitely read up on your books.
Christine, I was a joy. I'm buzzing here from ear to ear. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Good Grief. We hope that stories shared today have inspired and empowered you on your own journey of resilience. If you want to dive deeper into the themes of trauma, tragedy, and survival, be sure to check out my memoir, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival. In this book, I shared my own raw and honest experiences, offering insights and strategies for overcoming life's toughest challenges. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or listen to it on Audible. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful stories to light and spread a message of hope and resilience. Stay tuned for more incredible stories on our next episode. Until then, remember, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and good grief.